So, apparently the economy of countries across Europe have already collapsed. Guys, this is Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalists. If this is news for you, well, welcome to the club. I mean, I know what an economic collapse is. I actually gone through one myself and even wrote a book about it called Surviving the Economic Collapse, which if you want to read it, you will have the link there below in the description. But I know what an economic collapse is, even though I'm not a CIA spy, right? Which sounds super cool and badass, but before you make a big deal out of that, remember that's still a public employee for the federal government, and you think you need to be a genius for that. Just check who's holding the highest office in the land in the United States right now. Not exactly a genius, barely functional adults. But listen to what he says, and then let's try to analyze what's going on here, okay?
The Biden administration, whether you're pro-Biden or anti-Biden.
Are you pro-Biden or anti-Biden? Where are you? Pro-Trump? Let me try to guess. Okay, either way, he's talking to you. That's a cool trick, right? He's, no matter what you are, he's addressing you, and he's also feeding into that division of you have to be either pro-Biden or anti-Biden. You cannot be someone that is, I don't believe either one. When he says anti-Biden, he's talking about Trump. So you're either pro-Trump, you're team Trump, or you're team Biden. You have no option of not being in this polarized society that people like him want to make sure goes on.
The empirical evidence shows that our COVID response under President Biden destroyed the U.S. economy.
Yeah. You see what he did? Right, of course, Fernando, Biden is a damn idiot. Yeah, sure, he's senile old man. But Biden was not in office when COVID started. It was actually Trump. I mean, don't you remember? It wasn't that long ago. If you still have any doubts, go check. But it was Trump in office. In fact, the first time we saw Fauci was with Trump, not with Biden. And many of those measures, I mean, you may like Trump more or less, and I'm not even American. I don't have a dog in this fight. I think both of them are, not great presidents, and certainly Biden is a man that, as I've said in previous videos, should be in a home. And yes, sure, some of the things that Trump has done are a little bit more aligned with what conservative or more right-wing kind of people would agree more with. Still think he's not a good president, but neither here nor there. The man was not in charge of any kind of response because he was not the president of the United States when COVID started, and he wasn't until pretty much later on, well past warp speed vaccine with Fauci and Trump in charge. Remember all of that? I mean, it's not true what he's saying. The empiric evidence says that he doesn't know when COVID started or who was president of the country he's supposedly serving under at the time.
And most of the first world followed America's lead.
No, many countries did not. But anyway, let's just pretend.
With our COVID response, and destroyed their economies too.
It was usually more attached to how much lobbying, how much connection, and how much influence those pharmaceuticals, that elite, had in different countries. There's countries that did very bad. Some countries did a little bit better. Most countries were hit pretty bad. But the United States was actually one of the countries that had some of the more enslaving regulations in terms of how you could get away with not getting vaccinated or not. For many people in the United States, if you didn't get vaccinated, you lost your job. That's something that in many countries, many developed countries, that was not the case. I mean, there was a lot of pressure to get vaccinated in general, but that was very much something that in many countries was not a thing. In fact, countries like Sweden, they didn't even do lockdowns. So it's not true that everyone did the same thing, but it goes on.
Which is why you see massive economic collapse all across Europe, all throughout Asia, and all the countries that followed our lead.
You see massive economic collapse throughout Europe? What are you even talking about? That is just not true. An economic collapse is this. It's what I saw in Argentina. This is an economic collapse. An economic collapse is not a little bit of inflation. An economic collapse is not even hyperinflation. An economic collapse is banks closing doors, complete bank run, there's no money for anyone, and the freaking president leaves and no one even wants to take hold. That would be a textbook a full-blown economic collapse. Everything goes to hell, nothing is left, banks close their doors, and the country literally starts burning. And you could go into, you have a serious economic crisis, or you could even call economic collapses in some cases, like some of the things we've seen in Greece back in, a few years ago. But the idea that right now you have countries that have collapsed across Europe, he's appealing to people not knowing what's really going on. And if you look at the numbers, that's just incorrect. This is from the last average consumer price inflation rates, 2017 to 2021. Of course, right on top, you have Venezuela, Argentina, of course, and it goes on. The lower you go, the lower that inflation is. But this is the very top, right? Argentina, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Sudan, and you start going down into more stable kind of countries, and you get into some of the developed countries that have more stable economies. Mexico here still pretty high though, Brazil, South Africa, and it goes on, right? You have Russia there. You keep going down, and when you start looking at some of the Romania, right, Chile, Iceland, very high inflation because of things going on there. Here in Europe, you have Czech Republic, okay, Armenia. Those are countries that still have somewhat of a high inflation within what you look at European countries or somewhat developed countries. Estonia, and then you have the United States. And then you keep on going down this list. You have United Kingdom, you have Norway. And you also have to take into consideration, which I at least do, how transparent these numbers may or may not be. I think that one of the most misleading inflations actually comes from the United States, which does not go along. Actually, the current inflation is pure bullshit. We all know it's at least twice as much as what they're saying right now. But this is a little bit older than that, looking at that average. But here you go. Yeah, you have New Zealand, you have Austria, you have countries that are maybe not as reliable because of the source, right? You keep on going down. Germany, Sweden, right? You keep on seeing these countries going down the list. Andorra, which is kind of like a principality, kind of Spain. Anyway, this is from, back then. Now, if you look at 2022, you have, again, depending on how much you trust these numbers or not, 2022 was pretty high inflation for most developed countries. United States, 6.5, 6.3 for Canada, 5.7 for Spain, 5.9 for France. Germany was pretty high, 8.6. And so it goes. Poland, 16, that was super high as well. But as you see, it's actually some of these countries have lower inflation rate than the United States even right now. And even more so when you look at 2023. This is the average for Europe in general. And from left to right, you have the lowest ones, Luxembourg and going on, moving towards. But the idea that the economies of countries across Europe have collapsed, that is just a lie. And what he finally wants to do is reinforce this idea that we're great, everyone else sucks, America number one, and don't complain because everywhere else is worse. And that's never good for you. Objectively speaking, that is not something you want to go for. But I want to end the video with this.
Superpower, everybody wants to go with China. You and I have actually traveled the world, and we know you, being a Caucasian male, you know exactly what it...
He pulls the fucking race card on the guy. I'm a CIA badass spy, but I have to pull my... Yeah, you're a white Caucasian guy, and you know that if you pull the American passport...
It's like to step into a place and have everybody want your attention. Mm-hmm. Because once they hear your American accent, they think to themselves, money, power, connections. I mean, it's amazing how much influence outside of the United States being an American gets you.
No, honestly not. Maybe if you go to some very impoverished country, someone may think you can help them out. If you go anywhere, any developed country, you being American, no one will give a flying fuck about that. It may be more interesting or less interesting depending on that particular person, how much he's into, America in general or anything that may be associated with, as everything else. Just like in the United States, if someone drops by from Finland, I love everything from Finland or Nordic countries or from UK. Oh, I love the British accent. And some people may think I don't like it at all. I think it's stupid, or I think it's great, or it's super romantic, or not. The idea that just being American makes you fucking Superman everywhere in the world, that is just not correct. But he's trying to convince you that it is.
I'm an ambiguously brown guy with big hair.
Yeah, we all
notice that.
As
soon as I pull out that blue passport that says United States on it, I mean, parts of the world open up to us that we've taken for granted because we've never remembered. We've never experienced a life where that little blue passport doesn't get you special perks and attention, right? Everybody wants to be friends with an American because they think
no, especially in the last 5 or 6 years. I would say he's actually, especially in the last 10 years or so. I mean, man, ever since the increasing wars in the Middle East, mostly because of the United States intervention and so on, for most developed countries, it hasn't been particularly positive to be an American in most developed countries. And even in third world countries, it's something that, yeah, maybe someone like in a hotel, in a restaurant, maybe they assume that you leave a bigger tip because you do, in fact, leave bigger tips in the United States as well, because you have this idiotic thing of not paying people properly, so they have to account for those tips. But other than that, no. In fact, if you go to most banks, they don't even want to talk to you if you come with an American passport. Okay, guys, so that's why I think I'm no CIA spy, right? So that is, the cool factor of being a CIA, what did he call himself, like a brown guy with big hair? I don't have brown hair. Well, yeah, I do have brown hair, but not big. And I'm not trying to look like native or misleadingly brown. That bullshit is for people in this woke idiocy that you see a lot in the U.S. government. For us normal ass people, we don't give nothing. You know what specific color of skin you happen to be. It's we have other more important things going on for ourselves, and pulling the race card is frankly quite pathetic. But realize when you're being manipulated. This is from, I saw this channel recently because they did like EDC stuff, so I checked it out, and I came across this and I thought, man, he does do a very good job as in terms of forming a certain mentality that is serving his bosses very well, dividing society within the United States, but yet at the same time trying to convince you that you're he says it himself, America
is the land of opportunity. It's the land of freedom. Most countries in the world do not know freedom and do not know opportunity.
That is also incorrect. Unfortunately, that is more incorrect by the day. More incorrect each passing year, even more so. It is less free than ever before, and increasingly so, and it is less of a land of opportunity by the day as well. But he still wants to convince you of that. You have a lot more freedom in, I will say, most other developed countries, that they don't have the massive, huge, inflated, overgrown government that the United States has, mostly to control its own people. You won't find that in pretty much any other developed country, and even in third world countries. It's actually, sadly so, it's one of the least free countries right now, and it's been like that for many years now. And the same goes for the opportunities. You probably will have a better opportunity of having a good life in other places that are not in this situation. The idea that in developed countries across Europe, you cannot have more freedom and more opportunities than the United States. Do you have any idea how much it costs to go to university in most other countries? Do you have an idea how much I pay for my kids' education becoming a damn engineer? I have 3 kids. You know how much I worry each day about healthcare, about sending my kids to college? I'll let you guys figure that out. Guys, see you in the next video. Take care.